The second round of the FIDE Chess.com Online Nations Cup just concluded, and the world's second biggest chess superstar, Alireza Firouzja that is competing, which means that the spotlight burns extra bright on his games, and today we are featuring his second game of the day against Leinier Domínguez, the board number 2 for Team USA. Alireza Firouzja began the game with c4, and the players very quickly trotted out to a 4 knights English with e3. g3 is the other main line. Leinier played bishop b4, very principled move, and Alireza plays queen c2. The capture on c3 immediately is the more trending variation nowadays. It used to be castles, but grandmasters recently have been taking right away. And here a strange move, not queen c3, but bc3 played by white. So you would think that to put the queen there, you would be taking, but the queen on c2 serves other purposes along this diagonal, like trying to maybe get e4. White wants to close up the center, and then try to use the bishops in some capacity in the middle game. But Leinier immediately strikes in the center with e4. Then knight g5, queen e7, and now, according to theory, the only move in this position to give white any hope of an advantage, you need to fight against the central blockade with the move f3. If black does nothing, then you are just going to take the pawn. So black takes on f3, knight f3 castles, just developing with a bishop, and now black in this position will choose which way to develop the light squared bishop. Leinier chooses b6, castles bishop b7. Alireza proceeded with d3, but a quick fun fact about this position, Robert Hess of Chess.com, the #1 chess commentator, not just in the world, but of all time, Robert Hess, had this position in 2019 with the white pieces against Ruslan Ponomarev. That game happened at the FIDE Chess.com Isle of Man Grand Swiss, and Robert continued with knight to d4. d3 played, knight g4, and now e4. The idea of knight g4 is to get into e3 potentially, but also to anticipate the expansion of the center with the move f5. And after f5 on this move, bishop g5, attacking the queen, queen e8, pawn takes f5. Leinier here throws in a move which takes the game away from any recorded theory. Up to this moment, the players were following only 2 games according to my database, both of them correspondence games. Correspondence chess, for those of you that don't know, is obviously not live chess. It's not chess played over the board. It's chess where players get maybe a week or 2 to make a move, and oftentimes that analysis is bolstered by, the highest level chess engines. And they pave the way for theory sometimes, for opening theory, because a lot of these grandmasters pick up some ideas from correspondence games. Or maybe not, maybe that's just a myth, but I know for a fact that I have done that, and I know grandmasters who have done that. So, Leinier sacrifices a pawn for a moment and wins it back right away. But this move allows white to now create a really powerful initiative. An initiative in chess is an important word which just means expanding your position via the creation of threats. So you're creating threats against your opponent, but at the same time, you're not doing it in a crazy way. Like, for example, g4 is a silly move. It's creating a threat, but it's not creating an initiative. It's kind of a lasting pressure on your opponent. So Alireza plays d4, expanding in the center and attacking the rook. Leinier reinforces here. So he probably thought, okay, I've got both my rooks in the game. Life is good. But then rook e1 came, and this is a problem. Your queen doesn't have a lot of squares, and bishop d3 is coming with an attack on the rook and the queen. So Leinier backs up. But he had a brilliant move here. Leinier could have ignored the threat entirely and played knight a5, pressuring the c4 pawn and activating the bishop. And that negates the threat of bishop d3, because after bishop d3, you can play the absolutely ridiculous move, rook takes f3. And if I take the queen, there's back rank mate. Takes, mate. If g takes f3, there's bishop takes f3, check, and the king has nowhere to go, so the rook needs to sacrifice itself, and black doesn't lose any material. So the real question is, how does one come up with ideas like this? Well, obviously it's very difficult to just come up with them on the fly, but in chess, you've got to think about the hierarchy of threats. You know that this move is coming, which will be an attack on the queen and the rook. The only piece in chess that's technically worth more, or is more important, is the king. And so this move, knight a5, plays on the fact that this king is stuck in the corner, and there's various tactics that await the king if white decides to just gobble up material. So that's really the problem of knight a5, and it's just kind of how to get into the mindset of finding these sorts of ideas. But Leinier just backs up, And now let's count the amount of moves white plays which create threats, okay? Bishop d3. I mean, first of all, rook e1 created a threat. Kind of. 2, 3 on the queen. 4, a stunning move, because if takes, you have check, which will then pick up the bishop. Queen e2 is the 5th move, which threatens a discovered attack. A pin. That's not a discovered attack. Knight a5. c4, that's 6 moves. Queen h5, and now finally Alireza breathes for a moment and plays d5. This is utilizing his central pawn wedge, shutting out this bishop. The knight now has no squares to go to, and it looks like d5 just blunders the c5 pawn. But when you take, you completely immobilize 2 of your pieces. Your knight has no way back, your bishop has no moves, it can go to a6. But now white is going to have a very important tempo. It's going to be white's move, and he's going to be able to attack black here while these pieces just are basically stranded on the corner of the board. So Leinier plays c6, trying to fight back, not wanting to get shut down. And now another move, attacking the queen. And now another move attacking the queen. And the queen tucks itself on g3. And d6. So once again, sacrificing, I guess not, in this case, he's not sacrificing the pawn, but he's allowing this pawn to be captured because he's shutting out black's pieces. Very, very instructional play here from Alireza. Okay, excuse me, Leinier, not satisfied with being constricted, plays bishop a6 to put some pressure on c4. Queen e4, which threatens check, king f7, and mate in 1, g6. And now I urge you to stop the video, if you'd like, pause it, don't leave, just pause it. And like and subscribe if you haven't already. Mid-video plug. Pause the video, white to play and win. I will kill a few more seconds with small talk, and you might be very tempted on a move like this to play rook e7, and spoiler alert, that's actually exactly what Alireza did. Because you're getting the 7th rank, you're pressuring all these pawns, it looks very natural. But the winning move is the absolutely brilliant knight h2. Backing the knight back, going back with the knight, I should say, to h2. And the threat here is rook f6, and rook e8. You just invade with your queen and your rook, and it's over, and you're winning. But rook takes f1 is just met with knight takes f1. And the queen is... there's no squares for the queen. If queen f2, queen g6, and queen h7 is mate. So knight h2, an absolutely shocking move, just wins the game on the spot. 1 step backward, 2 steps forward. But Alireza goes rook e7. And now Leinier comes back with a knight and continues to pressure. Queen e3, defending c5, and also trying to get to h6. But queen f4, a timely defensive resource to trade the queens. The queens are traded, but bishop g6. Knight c5. Leinier gives away g6, but says, all right, I'm going to get back in here with my knight. I'm going to take on c4, maybe get my knight to e6, or my bishop. So I glue these pawns together, the pawn with the bishop. Rook e1, bishop c4, knight e5. So Alireza's down a pawn, but notice again, the king over here is in dire straits. Knight e5 is not just threatening d7 and the bishop, potentially. It's threatening bishop h7 check, king h8, knight g6 checkmate. So kind of a funny move here played by Leinier. King h8. I mean, he anticipates that bishop h7 was coming, so he just plays king h8 himself. Bishop h7 does not win the game here by force, because black has bishop f7. The only defensive move, and that's, I'm assuming, what Leinier saw. So rook h7 check was played instead, king g8, and now here Alireza missed what I guess what would have been his last chance to put the game maybe away on the spot, and that move is rook e3. Bringing the rook away from the prospect of getting traded, and rook lifting to g3 with the threat of some discovered attack on the enemy king. Rook e3, rook g3 looked very promising here. But Alireza played knight g4, looking for knight h6, and obviously he saw that Leinier could take. But I guess he maybe underestimated black's resourcefulness here. Because somehow, black just brings the bishop back, and g5 did not have to be played. Alireza didn't have to sacrifice the pawn. He could have just taken on h6 and then played g5. Because if rook h6, bishop takes g4, you have rook e... oh, not rook e6. That is a monument... oh, not rook e4 either. That's 2 mouse slips in the same video. I'm trying to lose my rook really intently. Rook e7 is kind of the problem, and it is nothing clear yet, but there are all sorts of attacks brewing, and luckily the king can get away. But Alireza sacrifices, and all of a sudden it's Leinier who has a pretty good defensive setup. The material count is knight and 2 pawns for a rook, so completely equal in terms of the material. And Alireza continued to try to fight here with the rooks, but once he lost that last pawn, he left himself with 2 very uninspiring pawns, and the king is able to just run to c7. And we're going to see that happen. There you go. King g1, rook e1, king f2, and all of a sudden, the tables turned, and it was Leinier who was putting some pressure on Alireza, which sometimes psychologically can be very difficult. If you've been pressured the entire game, all of a sudden you're trying to play for a win. See, Alireza's still trying to march the g-pawn, still trying to make something happen, but all of a sudden it started backfiring. These 3 pieces coordinate beautifully. This bishop is incredible. This knight coming in, attacking the king, attacking the bishop. Bishop h5, check, king h2, and the one chance in the entire game that Leinier Domínguez had to potentially get a winning advantage here, missed. He should have played rook f2 check, king h3, rook f1, with the threat of mate. And now the engine gives an absolutely ridiculous variation. Rook b4, freeing up the g4 square, c5, attacking the rook b2, rook h1, king g4, bishop e6, and there's nowhere you can put this king conveniently. King f3 is the only move. And after rook h3, you're going to lose something. You're just going to lose something. Because if you take rook h2, if you go to f2, there is knight f4 with the threat on the bishop and also on rook h2. So anywhere you go, you're losing something. If king e4, there is knight g3, forking the king and the bishop. A ridiculous position. But Leinier played rook f1 immediately threatening mate, and I guess he just missed that here there is rook g2. So both players sacrificing their rooks at the proper moment. Bishop takes, king takes, rook f5, and the game ended right here in what is a very, very fitting result of both players being winning at some point, a draw. It's a draw, agreed, because despite having 4 pawns versus 1, the bishop is very powerful, and it's kind of difficult for black to really make any progress at all. You know, if black plays like a5 and then b5, I mean, white is in time. White is going to be able to stop these pawns. But, you know, if you've got 4 pawns, just play it out. I would definitely tell my students here to play it out. I mean, they've got 4 pawns, and but draw agreed. Alireza Firouzja now 4 draws in his first 4 games against extremely top-level talent. And the FIDE Chess.com Online Nations Cup will continue tomorrow. That is May 7th at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, 6 a.m. Pacific. I don't know what that is in European time. 15? 14? Anyway, before I talk myself into a corner I can't get out of, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, write something in the comments, your thoughts on the game, and any game recommendations that you might potentially have, and we'll see you in the next Game of the Day video.